Do you have ideas that would be good laws for New York State? Welcome to part 2 of Government 101, where we'll talk with District Leader Josue Pierre about the makeup of government and how you can contribute to the laws that are made. Also in this program are many of our churches separated from the communities they serve. A member of the New York Commission on Human Rights will be my guest to discuss this. But we start with government. District Leader Josue Pierre, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me once again.
Many of us have heard that there are 3 branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Let's get a general understanding of the role of each branch of government. Describe briefly, what do they do?
So you have your legislative branch of government, where the laws come from, they create the laws. You have the executive, which enforces the laws, and you also have the judicial branch, which interprets the laws. That's the general structure of our federal government, and it's replicated in our state governments.
These branches of government are found on the federal, the state, and the local levels. Let's start our focus on the state level, since that is more tangible than the federal. How is the state broken down?
To the federal government, you have the legislative branch, executive branch, and the judiciary. With the legislative branch, you have the state senate and the state assembly, where the laws originate, and they would flow to the executive branch, where the laws are enforced. And just like we have the Supreme Court on the federal level, on the state level, we have the Court of Appeals. That's our equivalent of the Supreme Court, and they interpret the laws.
Let's talk about our communities. How is the representation for each community determined, and how long does an elected official serve?
Okay, so there is a census done every 10 years. That's the national census. When the data from the census comes from the federal government to the state governments, the districts which make up an assembly seat or a state senate seat are apportioned equally. So you have approximately the same number of people represented by either a state senator across the board or assembly members across the board. And so each of those members will go through primary through their party, and the winners of those primaries from either party or a number of parties would face each other in a district-wide election. And then from there, in the general election, which is usually in November, they would then the 2 final parties would face off, and whoever is victorious would represent that assembly seat or that state senate seat. And those are for 2-year terms. Now, for the governorship, those are for 4-year terms, and the elections are statewide.
Walk us through the process for creating a new law. It starts with the bill first, is that correct?
Yes, it starts with the bill first, and you have to keep in mind we have a bicameral system, so we have the Senate and we have the Assembly. The same law that passes in the Assembly has to pass in the Senate, so they're submitted simultaneously. You'll have an Assembly member submitted in the Assembly, same language, and you'll have a state senator submitted in the Senate, and they'll go through the process of first their committee. And when they're approved by the committee, they'll go to the general body for a vote in their respective houses, and the general body will vote on them. And after the general body votes on those same laws, they will then go to the executive for the executive signature or a veto.
Where do the ideas for bills come from?
Well, they come generally, they come from the legislator, or being the assembly member or the state senate. Now, there are instances where they come out of discussions with the executive branch. The executive branch can pursue certain laws and say, hey, these are some laws we'd like to see passed. The other thing is they come from people like you and I. You have the right to petition and communicate with your local assembly member and your local state senator and push them to pass a particular law. So They come from all aspects of government, but they also come from the local residents as well.
There are so many bills that are being introduced. Does the legislative body get to address them all?
Certainly bills that are prioritized and get through the both houses faster. And there are bills that might not make it at the end of the 2-year term while the legislature is serving. If within the 2-year term that bill has not voted on and sent to the governor, then it dies at the end of that 2-year period, and it would have to be reintroduced to the next house.
Let's move to local government. The breakdown is a little different. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so while on the state and federal level, you have a bicameral system, which means you have two houses. In the city of New York, we have one house, which is the city council. And that city council and the executive branch is the mayor's office, make up the bulk of the government.
Let's talk about people like me who vote, and so many of our viewers. Let's say someone has a great idea that they'd love to see become law because they believe that the idea would benefit the community. How do they go about ensuring that this happens?
Well, you can reach out to, on a municipal level, you can reach out to your local council member and have a discussion with them about your proposal. And they could actually bring it to the council committee, similar to what is done on the state level. And if it leaves that committee and is voted on, it will go to the general body and it'll be voted on by the entire city council and sent over to the executive, which is the mayor's office.
So how do community members go about tracking the legislation?
Well, if you go to the city council website, you'll be able to see where the legislation stands. It'll be assigned a particular number and you'll be able to track it. With the state level, you could also go to www.nyassembly.gov and track state level legislation as well.
Is it easy for them to read or to decipher these legislative activities?
That's a very good question. It is very much legal language. So, sometimes even folks in government, even the folks voting on these laws themselves have counsel that will go through the laws with them and explain it. So you can understand that sometimes us as lay people, we might read through it and not quite understand every line of it. But if you read through it, you'll get the general gist of what the law is proposing. You might miss some of the twists and legal turns within that language.
You are a district leader. What district is in, and how many districts are they?
Oh, that's a very good question. There are a number of districts. I represent the 42nd Assembly District out of Flatbush, Brooklyn, for the state of New York.
Mm-hmm. And do people get to meet with you, and where do they meet with you if they do?
So, one of the best places and I always tell people this, to meet your legislative leaders is at the local community board. And the reason I push that particular location is because whatever the issue is that you want to focus on, whether it be sanitation, housing, small businesses, etc., even healthcare, there's usually a committee at that community board that addresses it, and they meet once a month. And very often you'll find your various leaders there. Sometimes I'm there too. The other way in which is you Google the elected's email address, and you're able to shoot us an email and set up a time to have a conversation. And lastly, a lot of district leaders work through their political organizations and clubs.
And you said people attend these community meetings.
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the number of people who attend these meetings?
No, I'm not satisfied at all with the number of people who generally attend. And that's how I, at the age of roughly 19, 20 years old, attended my first meeting, because I did attend a meeting, and it was about what do you call it? It was about homeless shelters in the Flatbush area. And I did notice that not only wasn't there not broad participation by community members, but there were not enough people who came. And of those people who showed up, not very many people understood. So I took it upon myself to start going to my own community board meetings and serving as a voice.
Okay, and it's important to serve as a voice, and it's important for a community to attend these meetings. Okay, we want to thank you, District Leader Josue Pierre. I know people refer to you sometimes as Josh Pierre.
Yes.
Which do you prefer?
Whichever one works. The way you would pronounce my name is Josue, but generally those who can't say Josue would say Josh.
Okay, so I mispronounced your name earlier. I said Josue Pierre.
I take no offense.
Okay, well, Josh Pierre, we want to thank you for being on Brooklyn 45 and for expressing what you express in layman's terms so that people all across Brooklyn and all across New York who are watching this program, they can understand how our elected systems work. Thank you again for being a guest on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
Greetings, I'm Doria Larrier, here to talk about an important and often overlooked aspect of our lives, getting our house in order. Organizing a smooth transition for ourselves and our loved ones is a profound act of love and responsibility. Imagine the peace of mind that comes with knowing your final wishes are clearly documented and your loved ones are spared the stress of guessing what you would have wanted. Let's discuss 6 steps to get your house in order. First, organize your essential documents: birth certificates, social security cards, medical records, property deeds, and financial records. Make sure these are stored securely but are accessible when needed. Second, establish your will. A legally binding will ensures your assets are distributed according to your wishes, updated regularly to reflect life changes. 3, designate a healthcare proxy and create advance directives. These documents outline your healthcare preferences if you become unable to make decisions yourself. Fourth, don't forget to update your land and property information. Keep your records current to avoid any confusion later. Fifth, organize your vital passwords and account access. Ensure your family can manage your digital and financial accounts without hassle. And last, plan your final funeral wishes. Document your preferences for a service that truly reflects your life and values. Advocate for yourself and your loved ones. Let's get our house in order together.
Is there separation of the church, any church, from the community it serves, or even where it is located? Joining me to discuss this is Reverend Joseph Jones, who serves on the New York Commission on Human Rights in the mayor's office. Reverend Jones, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Let's talk about our churches truly serving the communities they serve.
I believe that they are doing the best they can under the difficulties of what has happened since COVID and even before COVID. The houses of worship are definitely taking a beating going forward after all that was done to help navigate through this issue of COVID and the amount of deaths and the amount of suffering that happened. Many pastors and many clergy, regardless of denomination, including myself, were definitely dealing with a great deal of things that they never had to deal with before in their lives. I know one particular week, I did 12 homegoing services in 1 week. That is a toll on you mentally, physically, socially, and spiritually. Many clergy are dealing with depression because of it, because many of those that passed were faithful, stalwart members of their house of worship. And again, it didn't matter the denomination, whether you were Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, it was just a hard time for the universal church. And now that we are basically recovering and trying to recapture and in some cases resurrect what we need to do to get back to that station, it's been very difficult.
Many churches are holding their services online. Talk about that. Is this one way of resurrecting the congregations, the number of people who attend the churches?
Yes, definitely one of the ways that the efforts that are being done to manage houses of worship online is one of the ways that they're working to labor to keep the congregation together while keeping the message that they have to serve on a weekly basis to their constituents as well as to those that have never heard them before. COVID opened up a great opportunity while it also hampered many of the houses of worship, because if you're a clergy leader that is used to being in the presence of your people, and now you have to navigate the Zoom, you have to navigate the mute button, you have to navigate the video and making sure your camera is clean and making sure the tone quality. Many clergy, they are animated when they're speaking. When you are on Zoom, you are basically sitting or standing in one place so that the camera can capture you, and you're usually regimented to a particular time frame. When you're in your personal house of worship, you can shorten it or lengthen it as you choose. So I know for me, it opened up an opportunity for me to have houses of worship in other states and even in some cases other countries, which did not happen before because we were more stationary in our houses of worship. We stayed in our silo. But then, of course, learning how to do all this technology, being able to spend the money and the time to make sure that it was properly put together was something that many houses of worship had difficulty with. And this is the way they're doing their best to resurrect, to reconnect, to revamp, to renovate how we can keep our congregation together. What about the giving financially, giving online? That's not something that most houses of worship were used to. The physical person would come and bring their gift in an envelope of such. Now they have to navigate the Zelle, navigate Cash App, navigate the technology required to send their gift in to the house of worship. So it's been a trying time.
You mentioned earlier what's happening in so many other states, not only in Brooklyn, but throughout New York and many other states as well. You see 2 and 3 churches on a single block. How does that affect membership or affect church growth?
It definitely affects it, because when you are prior to COVID, just before COVID, and you have churches side by side next to each other, the congregation that you have is now, if their services start at the same time, they're coming out at the same time, yet they're not unified in their efforts to really congregate as they probably should. They're not as unified in the resources and the services. There are many faith leaders that unfortunately have not even really communicated with their local community of churches around them, fostering this. It's my church and I got to take care of my church. I don't have the way, like, for example, once again, my church in the Bronx, Mount Hermon Baptist Church in the Bronx, we have a Catholic church to our left and a Spanish Pentecostal church to our right, or the other way around. And we are of service to both houses of worship. Recently, the church, the Catholic Church, requested our assistance because they were hosting a youth program, and we were able to meet their staff, meet their people, meet their priests, and connect with them. And then the pastor from the Spanish Pentecostal Church, he joined us in an outreach effort. That did not happen until COVID. Now, I had already been there for 5 years, and then COVID happened. Prior to that, I didn't know either one of those gentlemen. I didn't know either of those churches. So COVID was helpful in bringing together a certain unity if faith leaders will consider unifying regardless of your denominational issues, regardless of the denominational lines between you. One universal message is still real, the message of love. And that's where we can unify it.
I want to talk some more about this idea about unifying. But let me ask you, you are on the Commission of Human Rights. Talk a bit about that Commission on Human Rights.
The Commission on Human Rights is the agency that deals with racism and discrimination in the 5 boroughs. We have 5 offices in each borough, has an office stationed there, considered the community service centers. We have the opportunity to inform and educate all of the people of the city on their rights as a human being in this city. There are rights where you are treated fairly, regardless of your color, regardless of your background, regardless of your gender, regardless of your identification, regardless of where you come from, the accent you might have in your voice. In this city, you are protected under the law in jobs, in housing, and in public accommodations. We are a city that teaches and trains people that you don't have to like what I do or like who I am, but you have to respect it according to the law. The religious issue is a major issue with Christians, Muslim, Catholic, all of those different religions, the melting pot of religions that's in New York City. The Human Rights Commission defends those that are being mistreated because of their religious practices. When we have issues with the Asian community, we were there to defend that. When we have issues with the Black community, Black Lives Matters, we were there to support that effort, to teach people that the law, the human rights law, not necessarily criminal law, because we're a civil agency. We are the agency that have attorneys that can sue you civilly up to $250,000, depending on how the case goes. But we're the agency that fights for people's rights in the city, and we also teach on the human rights law.
Okay, talking about human rights, let's talk about migrants. We don't have a lot of time, but the migrant situation, I know that the city has been making certain demands on churches to accommodate migrants.
They have been making requests because of the issue of space. And houses of worship, in many houses of worship, we have space. And we have been at the forefront of helping the city to try to accommodate our migrants in reference to giving them a safe haven, a place where they can be in a safe space, they can be in a secure place, they can be fed, they can be clothed. And the church does what the church does. It takes care of people that are in difficult situations.
Let's go back to talking about, you mentioned the importance of unity. There are many churches on a block throughout New York, throughout many states. Is it going to be difficult to expect churches to unify, to work together?
We are finding ways to work together. I happen to be connected to several organizations. One of them is the Jewish Evangelical Roundtable, where we have Jewish leaders sitting down with Christian leaders and finding ways to work together to deal with issues that are germane to both of us. We also work with the Muslim community. I work with the Sikh community, and we're finding ways to come together. It's not coming together quickly. It's not coming together easily, but it is coming together because of the issues that are going on in our city. Unfortunately, we don't have the choice to just stand in our denominational circle and think that that's the way it's going to have to work. We're going to have to pull together. And at this point, you can worship however way you want to worship. But at the end of your worship, come meet me and deal with gun violence, housing issues, job issues, so that we can work together to combat those issues.
We only have about 30 seconds left. Talk about the importance of some churches not having a 501c3 in 30 seconds.
Critical that you must be properly aligned to receive the support financially from government officials and from grants by having your 501c3 in place. It's critical that the houses of worship put that in place more now than ever because grants are available.
And It benefits the church as well, and it benefits
It
those
helps
people who
ministry.
are contributing
Yes,
to
it
the
helps
church.
ministry, it helps outreach, it helps the opportunity to do things with our seniors and our youth. When you have some money that's coming in just specifically to address the issues in the community from outside sources, it makes it a lot easier and it's not taxing on the church's resources.
Okay, Reverend Jones, I want to thank you for being on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you so much, sir. It was my honor.
You also heard one of Brooklyn's district leaders, Josue Pierre, telling you how your ideas can become a policy of government. And that was part 2 of 3 programs that we're broadcasting about government. And to you, our viewers, we thank you for watching this program. You can watch it again on YouTube, and we invite you to support and partner with Brooklyn 45. We are a 501c3 community television program. So when you support us with a donation, you benefit and our communities benefit from the information our guests provide. So please tell everyone you know, your family, your friends, your work colleagues, to watch Brooklyn 45 on cable TV and on YouTube. And be a part of what we do to keep Brooklyn 45 going. On behalf of our team, I'm Sam Taitt.
Brooklyn 45 is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. Check out our website, brooklyn45.com, and feel free to donate or share it with your friends and family. Have any comments or questions? Send them to our Facebook, facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. If you have any questions or topics you think we should cover next, shoot me an email over at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching.